Well, that observation that Margot had about, she realized that the slower she went, the better it worked, and it's kind of a hard thing to get interested in doing whatever it is we're doing. Yeah, and your horses will, when you do anything slow motion, you are being extremely deliberate, and you're actually demonstrating to the horse what your language feels like. Now that evolves relatively quickly, where you're moving at a normal, natural pace in your decisions, and the horse will read it that fast. But by starting off with a slow process like that, it kind of lets them realize what you feel like when you're asking for something, and it's really, really, it's kind of an important teaching tool that we don't think of too much, and the whole concept of finding a horse. You pick up and find it, bring your legs and find it. That process is really overlooked because it's always about what we want the horse to do. So we're trying to get to the issue, and if we spend just a little bit of time working on that process of bringing that information to the horse, pretty soon it evolves, and your horse will just be like, they're just part of you. How many of you have had that experience at one point where you and your horse felt like one? Everybody has, I think. Where you've done something and all of a sudden this is just like, wow, how'd that happen? And so you can't really duplicate that, but if you really think about it, every time it happens, there's almost always something to do with your demeanor.
Yes, very much so.
That when you're doing things and you find yourself being interested in the horse, just like all of a sudden this thing just happened.
And then when you're riding, sit.
Okay, now that is the learning curve of the horse, and you'll see that every time when you're teaching anything of repetition, you'll see the horse have progress, and all of a sudden they just start falling off. And that's the point where a lot of times the person starts to question themselves, thinking, "What am I doing wrong?" But that's actually how the horse learns. When they go negative, they'll things will feel right, and then they'll think, "No, this isn't right," and then they'll start doing everything wrong. And usually when they start doing something wrong is when we start doing something insistent. In other words, we're trying to fix it. And so what happens to the horse on their learning curve, they probably shouldn't call it a curve, their learning graph, is they have all this appearance of progress, and then it starts to fall away, a little bit of progress and more regress. And then now you're way down in the depths of this thing where they're just really struggling with everything. You stay with it, and pretty soon they start coming up, and what looks like a graph in the beginning of a learning scale then it just looks like a wave, and they stay pretty consistent on their learning. But it's important that you don't, because when you will, as you've already had it, experience that where things were going good and then they weren't, and in the back of your mind you might be thinking, gee, what did I do wrong? But it wasn't you, it's just the way the horse. And I think that's kind of it helps me anyway when I'm teaching a horse. It's almost like a barometer. When I see the horse just starting to melt down, I think, oh good, he's going to be getting it here pretty soon. I want to see if you guys are comfortable with getting on board and duplicating what you just got through doing. Okay? Now, as I demonstrated here earlier, when you get on your horse, and if your horse starts to walk off, try to resist the temptation to shut it down. Choose a rein and start to work with that rein. Now, this may happen to you when you get on your horse, and the horse may start to walk. Your instinct, what will happen typically, people gather the horse up quick to stop it from walking. I would rather that you don't do that and start to work with the rein of choice, whatever it happens to be in that particular case. So let's say getting on the horse and the horse starts to walk off. Instead of trying to stop it immediately, I want to take advantage and see if I can use that movement to find my way to what I want the horse to do. Good girl.
Okay. I just got a smaller horse.